For the past 6 months, I've been working on a roguelike first-person slasher inspired by some of my favorite games from the late 90s and early 2000s. It doesn't really sound like a long time, just laid out like that, but 6 months is a long time! It definitely sets a personal record for how long I've worked on a single project without losing interest, hitting a wall, or getting burnt out, which I've done many, many times. There are highs and lows and week-long periods where I never even got the chance to work on it, but despite all of the ebbs and flows, I never ended up shelving the project for a few reasons that I wanted to share with all of you today. The main reason for making this video is that I think not shelving a project is something not a lot of people touch on when they talk about game dev as a hobby, and I figured some of the strategies I developed might be helpful to others who want to turn the hobby into a career. That, and I just also haven't touched this channel in a while, and I figured the dust should get blown off one of these days. Anyways, that's besides the point. What I want to tell you about today is how I've stuck with making my game Catacomb for so long, starting with the project scope and planning. Something I see a lot, especially with devs who post to YouTube, is somebody gets an idea or somebody has an idea for a game revealed to them in a dream or something, and immediately they jump straight into the engine to start making it. That kind of stuff is great for prototyping and workshopping, don't get me wrong, but there's a big difference between a one-off idea and an actual capital P project that I haven't seen many people talk about. The main difference being planning. The big reason I shelved so many projects in the past was because I started with a simple idea and I just kind of started adding onto it based on what I thought was fun or interesting, which is not a bad thing on its own, let me be clear, but when the entire content of your game is a giant sandbox level with random experiments dotted here and there, it gets really easy to lose focus. Having a clear image of what you want the project to look like a year or two down the line has been super helpful for me, and it all started with making a design document. Yeah, I know, don't click off. I know the word document is scary, but having exactly what you want the game to look like when it's finished, written out in plain text, makes it way easier to focus on adding stuff to the game that'll actually contribute to the core of it. It doesn't need to be some massive 100-page document of every little facet of the gameplay either. Of course, a lot of that stuff you won't know when you're first writing the document. Just having some general stuff down, you know what I mean? Like what the story might look like, the art style, the genre of the game. Just knowing what you want to draw inspiration from before you open the engine is a really good tool to have with you. So, now you've got the end goal all written out, which is great, but it can be daunting to have this big idea and then open the engine to a blank scene, which brings me to my next point, which is setting immediate goals and small milestones. Making a game is eating an elephant. You have to do it one bite at a time, especially when you're working solo. Starting with a small level to test art and get all of the basic stuff working is a great point to branch off from. And after you've got that starting place established, you can start to form a long path from point A to point B. Point A being, where you've just started, and point B being the game when it's done. Still though, path is traveled step by step. What I've been doing is list what I want to have done in just the next week or so. Stuff like completing a movement system, forming framework for simple stuff like changing levels, managing UIs. And I mean literally writing down lists, especially somewhere that stares at you when you're not working on the game. I don't know if it's a brain hack or what, but the mix of dopamine from checking stuff off the list and not letting it go out of sight has kept me working consistently even when I have problems with self-motivation. Now, let's say you hit your milestone. Sweet! But now what? The obvious answer is to just write down a new list and start working at it again. It can definitely seem that way when you're on a roll, but it's important to maintain a balance. The most important thing about not getting burnt out is not flooring the gas 24/7. Using weekly and monthly goals to pace myself based on what I think I can accomplish in that time, between going to work and going to school, has been one of the biggest contributing factors in my sticking with it for so long. If you get a bit ahead, that's great too. You just take a day to yourself, go for a bike ride, spend time with your friends, just do something that gets you away from the computer for a few hours. I like to bring a pen and pad with me when I go out to write down ideas for the project. Stuff to change, add, maybe a design for a room popped into my head, so I'll sketch it out now and look at it later when I'm back at the computer. Just stepping away for a bit gives you a chance to look back at what you finished and where you should go from there. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today isn't absolutely paramount, but It does definitely help, and that's to not keep everything to yourself. Tell your friends about your game. Let people know what your plans are, and let them help hold you accountable if you start dragging your feet. Since I started development, I've had a public Discord server for a bit where I write down what I've done and what I plan to do next, and knowing that other people care about the project and can see what I'm doing has been a huge help in not losing motivation. One more thing related to this, and I know everybody talks about it already, do playtesting for the game. Like a lot. Like way more than you think you probably should. Take that amount and multiply it by like 2 or 3. Having complete strangers play the game when it's halfway done and giving you feedback not only lets you know what you're inevitably doing wrong and should probably fix, but it also lets you know what you're doing right and how you should expand on the successful ideas. It doesn't have to be some big thing either, just set up a Google form for feedback, open a public playtest on Steam or release an alpha on itch. Just do something to get your project out there. I think it's important to note that what I talked about today has been what's worked for me, and obviously what works for me may not work for you. I think the important takeaway from all this is that setting short and long-term goals, holding yourself accountable to them, and letting other people also hold you accountable is a great way to set yourself up for success in game development. This is the part where I ask you to wishlist Catacomb, the game you've been seeing footage of, and where I invite you to join my Discord server if you're interested in keeping up with its development. Also, let me know if this talking head style of video is something you'd be interested in seeing more of. I'm trying to experiment a bit with this video and content creation in general. Alright, I think I touched on most of the things I wanted to mention. Like, subscribe, yada yada. See you all next time.